Good evening, Mysterium. Good afternoon, Mysterium. Good morning, Mysterium, wherever you are in the world. I am so honored to be able to present this keynote address. I can't even believe it, actually, that I'm here doing this. 4 years ago in 2016, almost to this date, a very, very special event happened to me in my life, and that was I got to meet Rand and Robyn for the very first time. And they were speaking here in Brooklyn, and nearly 25 years or so after I had first played Myst, while I was a junior in college, I think. And I watched over and over and over again the behind the scenes video that they very kindly put onto that single CD ROM that played on my old Macintosh. I got to meet them. I asked if anyone had ever done a documentary about Myst. And to my shock, they said no and seemed confused that anyone would ever want to. And it came out of my mouth faster than I could even think it. Could I please? And they said yes. And in that instant, however long it takes one neuron to pass from conception to completion, the Myst documentary was born. And we've been running a Kickstarter, as many of you know, that's doing fabulously well. And if you could just help us kick that over the top before it ends in about 5 days, that would be fantastic. But tonight, I want to bring on your headliners, Rand and Robyn Miller, creators of Myst.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, wait, is this thing on? I'm so sorry.
Watermelon is on, Rand, yes.
It's Watermelon Week. It's Watermelon Week, and I just, it's time for my daily watermelon. I didn't realize we were live. Hold on. By the way, that is the size of watermelon I eat every day.
Wow.
I am not joking.
Wow.
Hey, Philip.
Robyn, your thoughts on watermelon?
I actually want to just echo something, Philip, that you just said. Now that Rand's finished with his watermelon gag.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were just saying how honored you were to, be doing this, but seriously, and I know Rand feels the same way. We are so incredibly honored. I am so incredibly honored to be, to have seen Myst grow into what it is today, to be here in front of all of you, the fans. We never would have expected that it would have done this, that it would have become something like this. I mean, the first year it came out, we never would have expected that it would have been such a success, but to have it become this thing that has now a life of its own, that, there's these Mysteriums that where people, get together year after year. It's such a tremendous honor. We feel like, we're just like this small part of this thing that is well beyond us. So I just wanted to say that quickly here at the beginning.
That was beautiful.
Well said. What he said.
Yeah, what he said. I think Robyn, on my screen, Robyn is in the Paul Lynde slot, which is the center square. But we're going to get to fan questions right away here. But I just, because you said that, Robyn, so I do want to finish the thought that when I met you, it took me a lot of courage to get up and talk to you at this conference. And when I finally did, I started talking to you, and truth be told, the idea sort of started to percolate that I should ask you about doing a documentary. Like, this is literally, it was like, this is my destiny. And it's the only time also I've had any kind of professional or personal restraint. I thought, let me, they're going to do this keynote address. This was at this conference called Kill Screen. And a shout out to Jameen Warren, the founder of that, who may be in the audience. He's been tweeting for us. He's fabulous. I thought, let me go see, maybe let them do their talk. Maybe they're jerks. Maybe they're boring. Who knows?
Good point.
But you guys got up there, and I remember in particular, there was a question from a fan about how does it feel to continue to get, this kind of attention. And you were both so humble and kind. And I've been saying a number of times, we've been doing interviews for the Kickstarter about the documentary. People ask me all the time, what's the legacy of Myst? And there's a lot. We can look to any, you can look to modern games now and find all kinds of connections. But one of the most beautiful and meaningful legacies to me is all the people that played the game and have continued to, just like I have, all these years later, keep it in our hearts. And so many people have gone into gaming and all that kind of generation after generation. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So we'll get to questions. I'll just give out one shout out. I won't do this too often, but themystdocumentary.com is the website for the documentary. And if you go there, you can click there, and we're doing a fundraiser campaign. And if you can help us out, that would be wonderful. Our first question tonight, and I'm going to do as many of these as possible, so we're going to be moving fast. Kelly Costin, super fan. Hi, Kelly. Kelly asks, was there a part that you would change if you could? Did you ever consider a different style for Myst?
Mm-hmm. A different visual style. I'm going to assume that she means a different visual style. I know there were parts that I would change if we went back and did it in terms of gameplay. In terms of a visual style, it's, we were contained or hampered by the tools we used. So there's a lot of things, if you go back and play Myst again, you'll notice that there's a lot of primitives that we had to use, like the trees on this island were just cones, for example.
Tell us what's a primitive?
A primitive are just things like cones, cubes, spheres. If you look at the architecture, there's just cubes. Most, a lot of the buildings are just cubes with holes cut into them, or simple spheres that are drawn along a path. So everything are just these very, very, the most simple geometry we could possibly do, because that was what you could do at that time. Then to do anything more complex than that, we use textures, and even the textures were very simple. So yeah, we would have loved to do something more complex. But the 3D software we were using at the time didn't allow us to do that. Now, when we moved on to Riven, it was a whole different world, because we were using computer systems that allowed us to do more complex stuff. So looking back on Myst, as soon as we even got onto Riven, we felt like, oh my goodness, yeah, we could have done this or this or this or this. Or even while we were doing Myst, I had all different kinds of things in mind visually, but we just couldn't do it. I mean, an example is the library. There were ideas that for the library that I just couldn't do one thing. And okay, great example. All of the animations in the entire game are postage stamp sized.
Yeah. So
we had to build for those postage stamp sized videos that we had to constrain to. And then in terms of puzzles, I think Rand and I could easily think of puzzles that we did that later on we kind of learned through Myst as we were doing it. These puzzles are not necessarily the best way to make puzzles, and we got better and better at it as we went along. That's a great question.
The style question is interesting, because Robyn tells often how, we started this with kids games that Robyn was drawing by hand, and Myst, we thought we would draw by hand. And so the style could have been very different had we gone down that path. And Robyn probably would have a lot more gray hair and anxiety issues had we gone down that path.
That's cool. All right. Number 2. from Callum Traveler. What is the funniest non-spoilery thing that has happened during the documentary filming so far? What is the funniest thing?
Non-spoiler.
Non-spoiler. Well, it would, yeah. Well,
Wow.
don't worry about spoilers
Okay,
at this point. Yeah, it's
this
all
one's
raw.
not
It's all raw.
this one's not funny, but it's kind of bizarre, and I thought it was interesting. Philip was here for my dad's, was it his 80th or something like that?
80th birthday.
So we had the family here for this 80th thing, and Philip is subtly in the background filming stuff because that's what he does, fly on the wall kind of thing. And
Kyle Kelly,
my daughter also announced that, like, all of a sudden she says, I want to make an announcement, and she announced she's pregnant. So it's this big event that we've got on film now, thanks to Philip, that we never would have captured otherwise. I don't know how he's going to turn that into drama and interesting things besides for me, but I don't care. It was interesting for me. That's what mattered.
It was beautiful. Yes, and a shout out to my incredible cinematographer Kyle Kelly, who was also filming that and made that extra.
That's right.
Extra special. Robyn, have we had some funny moments? Non-spoilery. Boy, there was one that it would just be such a spoiler, but I couldn't even begin to tell you because it's so funny. No. Robyn is silent.
Give me a hint.
Is Robyn frozen?
I don't know if Robyn, we lost Robyn.
I think we may have lost
Give
Robyn.
me a hint of your spoilery one.
No, I don't. I
just a hint.
Well, there is. So we
just between you and me. Just between you and me.
Look, and there's no internet, just us.
Don't spoil it. Just, a little smidgen.
You know what? There is a wonderful. So one of our editors, Ben Lewin, has been putting out little teaser, little snippets we've had, and there is a beautiful one where Robyn went into his closet in his home and pulled out this gigantic roll of paper and puts it down on the table and opened it up.
Nice.
It's not funny, but it was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Check it out. So if you want to see what that is,
cool.
Give to the Kickstarter, themystdocumentary.com, and maybe we can afford to roll out that paper for you.
By the way,
yeah,
here's more of those, but different.
Oh,
these are the actual. They're sitting right here on my desk. Wait. My desk is a mess, but these are tapes that we have to get stuff off of. I've got more of them, stacks of them over there.
Wait, so what are fans
these are Myst development stuff. That's like, I've put a couple little clips up there that I've managed to get off one of them of recording Akinar and the sheep thing where we were recording ourselves in Robyn's backyard. But I don't want to break those. Anybody who follows me knows I destroyed a camcorder to try and record one, and I have to be really careful not to. So that'll be one thing we try. Well,
we're going to get that professionally
as well.
Yeah, we will get those professionally restored. That will be fantastic. Number 3, cool. And Robyn is on his way back. From Zeus 1776, there have been rumors off and on about a movie in the Myst universe, whether based on the books or the games or something different. How do you both feel about that idea?
So we're making progress with that. You guys, anybody who follows it knows that we've kind of teamed up with Village Roadshow, at least for this first stage of things, and they've been awesome. But
that's a television.
And it's an episodic TV. I mean, they have rights to other things too, but I think what we're excited about and what we got them excited about was episodic television, and not to just do the old story, but to move it forward in ways that may surprise you, may not satisfy all of you, but is exciting for us. It's so that's where we're at now. Hollywood has its own time frames and mysterious ways, and so you've heard me say that before, but again, seems like we're making more progress than ever, and we get to be kind of part of it more than ever at this point. So Robyn's not as much involved in that. He's doing different things, so we'll see how far we get along, and then see if how things evolve.
Awesome. Number 4 from Riven Plus. Hey Rand, is that fireplace behind you big enough to sit inside?
That's just a fake background. That's not really a fireplace that has a control panel on the inside or anything like that. It's just completely fake. No, if you see anyone come out of that fireplace, it's not real. It's just fake, and it doesn't link to a secret chamber behind it or anything like that.
Now, speaking of that, actually, I want to give a quick mention of something. It was in one of our updates, and it was just a little tease. And this is an idea that is still very much in development for the Myst documentary. But I really want to go into Myst. A question for a film is like, how do you explain things? How do you make something understandable while also, doing it in a fun and cinematic way? So, for instance, making a computer game or even just working at computers, it's tough to do. I want to bring our film crew and you guys into, I'd love to go to Myst and Riven with you guys and walk around and as like a walking tour and have you show us, and some of the other folks who worked on it come on and say, hey, look over here, there's this thing, and we will be able to look behind. And I have an image of something like, maybe you can explain this to me better, but like underneath the ground, for instance. I also imagine it's like a Disney World type thing. It's all very vivid and real, but in fact, it's a machine, right? To understand how you laid out paths, for instance, that there are paths and nodes and things like that. Or when you go here, there's a trigger of some kind that the music shifts, right? We'd be able to sort of pull up the grass and see that.
Ooh.
Underneath.
That'd be fun.
I think that'd be really cool. And when you were talking about, for instance, Robyn, you were talking about how the videos were postage stamp size, for instance. And I must say, as I was, because I was in college age at that point, and I was playing the game, and it was really cool because I could thoroughly enjoy the game and be swept away by it, but simultaneously be aware of knew what you were doing. Like, oh, look how the elevator door closes, and then there's a little window, and it's not even the full thing. It's like there's 3 strips or something. So I would love in this, we can go in there in the movie. We're in the elevator, but it'd be fun to say, come this way. And then we just sort of magically, pop out of the elevator and look at it from the other side. And we can see there's just a little square of video hanging in the air as the elevator moves, as a way to explain things. I think that'd be cool. Do you think that'd be cool?
That'd be awesome.
I think it'd be awesome.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. So the mystdocumentary.com, that's it's going to take us a little bit of work. So can help us out on our Kickstarter and get some cool, really, it has to be cool also. So it'll be cool. Be cool. All right, here we go. Another one from Kefrith. How much footage from recent years' Mysterium conventions is likely to make the final cut? Yes, I've been filming. This is my 4th Mysterium, and so I've been filming for the past 3. So excellent. And by the way, Kefrith, you are fantastic. I have a lot of beautiful footage of you. How much footage from recent years' Mysterium conventions is likely to make the final cut? Representation in our fan community in the documentary is quite important, in my humble opinion. I hear you. So I'd love to see Philip use as much footage of that as possible. Well, Kefrith, because you spelled my name properly with 1 L, because that's all my parents could afford, you're that much closer to doing it. I can say, the funny thing is, a lot of people are asking us, will this be in the film? Will that be in the film? And one of the reasons, it seems like documentaries take a long time to make, a number of years, right? But we all know that fiction films also take a long time to write, but a long time to make. But you're generally only aware of it once they start filming, and it seems like, they start filming, and then pretty quickly it's edited and the movie comes out. But they've spent years doing the writing. In documentaries, it's a little bit backwards. We do all the filming first, and then sort of sit down and look at all the footage and try to write it and edit it from there. So it's a long process, and I really, I just don't know exactly what will wind up in terms of amount or something like that. But absolutely, I can tell you, Kefrith, and everyone else, that you guys are part of the story. If I have a chance, I'll talk about it later. You can go see other interviews I've been doing to sort of keep up with my ideas for the film. But the movie is inputs and outputs. So inputs, all this cool stuff was happening in California, in Asia, in Europe, and all around Australia, and all these things came in. Technologies were being created, art forms developed, things like that, and all these different tools came into Spokane, and there was this little house where they were working. Robyn and Rand, and they did their magic on this stuff, and then they put out Myst, and then later Riven, even bigger, and it goes out, and zillions of beams of light, the output going out and landing, and where those beams of light land, that's the game arriving, and that's you playing, or maybe it's your parents playing it, and then their children playing it, and their children playing it. So the whole idea of this flow of people and the handing off of things. Through generations.
Well, and can I add something to that, which is, I think what's really cool as well, and I'm pushing for this to get into the documentary, is the creation, like what people have created.
Yeah.
And many of the fans, many of you guys out there, but that's one of the things that excites me so much whenever I see it. I love it. I love seeing this online. It's like, again, such a privilege for Rand and I and all of us who were there at the very, like sparked this thing at the very beginning. But then now it's just grown so much larger than life. And, all of like the writings and the art and the costumes and all that stuff, I'm hoping is there, because I said earlier today, we did an interview, but like if you add up all of that amount of work that has gone into it, the work we did to make Myst is just dwarfed by the work that has been put into all that stuff. And so I can't wait to see that somehow visualized in the film. That's going to be a blast.
Super cool.
I have to piggyback too. Wait, just briefly, because the output part is, Philip said it's like input and output. And the only way we understand that output part, where you guys were inspired by Myst and do like really creative, cool things that blow our minds, and we're so humbled by, it's like, oh my gosh, how can that have happened? Is if we look at the input and realize that we were inspired by people doing really cool things.
Yes.
And it all kind of just moves on through humanity. And so that's really, really cool. Totally agree. That's and we weren't just part of this.
We weren't just inspired, we were enabled by these tools that we use. Like, I mean, it's almost like it was a big funnel. I mean, all these tools, and inspirations fed us and enabled us, and then boom, this little thing that took 2 years, we made it. Somebody was going to make something like Myst. Somebody was going to do it. It happened to be us, and then it exploded again. And so it's just that is kind of, I think, what you're talking about, Philip, when you're talking about input and output.
And it's like input and output, and it's more, again, this is like super nerdy engineering type thinking, but like it's a feedback loop. The outputs.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Every origin story has an origin story. Has an origin story. Number three. Now, another question, whatever we're up to now, from Pierino Gattai. Where'd he go? With hindsight, what would you consider doing differently, or even consider changing if you were starting afresh? Now, the question is how much afresh? Like, but let's assume he means Myst.
Well, I mean, I'm going to take that as if we were doing it now, and I think the whole key to that, the whole key to the answer to that question is you have to define the box that you're developing in, and that means what technology you have at your disposal, how big you can go in each direction of that box. You have to know what the limits are, and then you design well inside that box. And so the box now would be very different than the box was for us back then. We might now consider real-time 3D, and you know, we wouldn't be having to fit it onto a CD-ROM. There's streaming, so the sizes could be very different. So the boxes change, and the box isn't. I mean, it's not a limiting factor. It's just how well you design within that box. I think that's important.
The box.
I will take that question. Can I just make an additional remark? I will take that question to mean if we were designing it back then, but kind of thought about some of our design a little bit more and considered, we're a little bit more intentional about some of the stuff we did. And because we never considered Myst to, that we never thought about the fact that it would be a huge hit. We jumped into some of our design without, never thinking it was going to explode. And so we were not super intentional about some of the stuff. And I, after the fact, I feel like some of the stuff has interface problems. At its core, for example, the mine car, I think has a cool concept. I think that's something I think we either could scrap, and I'm talking about the maze. I think it's either something we could completely scrap and start from scratch, come up with a completely different concept, or we could fix the interface that's at its base and make it work better. That's something I cringe whenever I, see it or think about it.
So for those who don't know, the part, just to be clear, the part you're talking about, the part of the game where it's like the yellow submarine. Yes. And
so Robyn and I have a little bit different view on that.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Well, I understand the frustration and I understand the interface element. I think but my change on that would be incremental. I thought I think we could have maybe made the sounds a little more prevalent, but I loved the fact that at the end of this world that you got to by messing with sounds and you solved by understanding sounds, that you got into this maze and if you completely forgot about everything you had done to get up to this point, the idea of sounds, then this was a maze.
Right. I want to explain. I don't want people to be lost. I want people to be able to follow you guys because this is important, right? So a lot of people here, especially Mysterium fans, they know exactly what we're talking about. But there's we have more than 4,000 people listening, by the way, and so I want everyone to appreciate what's happening here. So there's a puzzle in the game. Well, there's a lot of puzzles. It's an adventure game. You go and you succeeded. You figured out a clue. A door opens. You walk in, and sometimes you discover a vehicle of some fantastic kind, and you can go in. And this one is looks like a little bit like the Yellow Submarine from the Beatles. And if you know who that is, I don't know. Half our audience may not even know who they were. But you go in there, and it goes down, and now you're on like a railroad track, and you go forward, and it's not clear. Should you go left? Should you go right? Should you go back? So it presents itself as a maze in a way. You feel like, oh, I'm driving this thing and I just got to figure out how to get somewhere. I, like many people, number one, I refuse, and I am to this day this way. I will not look up a hint. So I'm just like, I'm going to see this through. And it was definitely the hardest puzzle in the game for me, but I stuck at it and went on for days. Many. Anyway, I would, I did something a lot of people did, which is tried to map it out in my journal, right? And there's no spoilers here, but I did solve it. So that's what. So what you guys are arguing over is whether the actual solution, which we don't want to give away. Those who know what it is know what it is. But here we have the two brothers, kind of having different perspectives on that. Now, when you
let me just say something.
Yeah.
Which one of us is right and which one of us is wrong? I was right. Okay.
Okay. Well, but that's sure. Rand.
I do want to say
I just humor him. I humor him.
There was another design to that, a completely different design when we first started, and it was not a mine car. It was actually a walking pathway through a more fantastical maze. And we started
Seussian maze.
Yeah, a more Seussian style maze with
what is that?
stairs and
I got to Google
and
it.
we had that. We started to build that, and it became overwhelming, and it just totally was a mess, and it didn't work. But the when you got to each hub, there would have been a very visible button that when you pressed it, you would have very clearly heard the sound. And that interface would have been more, you wouldn't have missed it. And I think, not that there shouldn't have been a mine car, I'm not saying that that couldn't have worked.
Right.
It's just that the design of the ship, for example, the design of the buttons, all of that added up. The design of the sounds, all of that adds up to something that doesn't, and I feel, Rand does feel it, but I feel it doesn't, it doesn't, it bugs me. It's
right. No, this, by the way, I want you to know this controversy is heating up the internet right now because we've just gone from 4,000 to 5,500. So keep it up. Keep it up, whatever it is. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to get back to the fan questions here because we had a ton of them coming in. So keep those coming in, by the way. Also, if you want to see these, we're going to follow these stories more in depth. We're going to bring these stories to life. We're going to bring out archival, we're going to find some original sketches. We're going to walk into that area, we're going to walk into that part of the game and walk around, and you guys can argue about what should we do here. You could even, you could have a hammer and a screwdriver or something. You could begin to work on it right then and there. We could solve it. But hard hats, safety, eye goggles always. Here's a question I bet you haven't been asked. I could be wrong. At what point did either of you, each of you separately or together, realize this was something that wasn't, if you feel, could have been better? At what point did you realize? Like, was it you were people, like, how did you find out about it? Like, you didn't these days everybody does huge amounts of beta testing and stuff like that, right? Did you guys do beta testing? Or at what point in the process, Robyn, did you start to feel like, oh, we should have done that, and you had no ability to go back?
Okay, well, it's interesting because when we were working, we got done with Myst Island. We were working on Myst Island first. And I think we felt really good about Myst Island because it was unique. But then we started working on other islands, and we knew there were problems. It wasn't like they were perfect. But we knew also that there were uniquenesses. And all in all, we felt like this is a good game. This is cool.
We approached it like
but I'm just also
indie shop would approach it. I mean, we had this budget, we had this in mind. There's no way that we should have been able to build what we built with the budget we got. I mean, we built so much more than what the money possibly, could have made. And that made us feel like, okay, we did a good job. It doesn't mean we did perfect. It doesn't mean that there weren't things that we
absolutely
could have improved.
I mean, there were things in it visually, and I think every game maker feels this way. There were things visually that, made me feel like I felt like that is so far from what it should be, but it's got to ship.
So Philip, I'm going to answer your question a little bit.
At the same time,
well, I was going to say,
I was going to say, in addition to that, it also was achieving a lot more. I mean, we were achieving something that, it looked really cool. Like, we made a world, and we kind of visited this place as we were making it. Like I was telling you earlier today, Philip, we were able to explore this place as we were visiting. It was very fulfilling as we were making it. We had so much fun making it. Ann and I, as we were making it together with the rest of the team, it was a blast. And that was what it was all about for us. So it wasn't like anybody finished that game making it and we're like, oh, what was me? We're not shipping what we wanted to ship. I mean, we all were crazy excited about finishing the game.
Yeah,
we really, felt good about it.
Yeah,
and I think, Philip, that it's almost the opposite of your question. You asked, like, was there a moment where we may have cringed when somebody played something and we were like, oh. And it was almost the other side where there was a little bit of anxiety. We were really happy with what we had produced. Mm-hmm. But now you kind of hand out your baby to the world and go, okay, is it okay? And the comments started coming back overwhelmingly like, it's okay. And it was like, oh, cool. I mean, it was very reassuring that even the places we felt like we had to compromise, we had the right feeling. We had done a good job and we were kind of affirmed in that.
What was one of the first things, like, I guess it would have been a review or something. What was one of the first moments you read something and you were like, oh?
Well, I'll say this though, Rand, and you might remember this. There were game magazines that a couple of early game magazines came back, and those were the first place that reviewed it, and they gave it sort of negative reviews. And I remember feeling like crap. Oh, okay, this is not, all this work, it's not good, And then it began to extend into places beyond that. There were players, I think the expectation of video games was that they would have certain elements. Once it extended into these other places, we began to get all this positive feedback. And that's when we started to get so excited, at that positive feedback.
And I'll answer Philip's question and piggyback on your answer. I think that Robyn and I weren't really tightly tied to the gaming industry. So the opinions that were coming back from like game critics were, they were always a little bit like, oh, come on, really? But it was really more like the individuals who were saying, this is so cool. And I remember the focus group tests we did early on with Broederbund, where this was like the biggest risk for us. And Philip, I think a guy one of the guys who was involved in that, yes, you're in touch with for getting, talking about, he knows a lot more details. Robyn may not even know this, but he wrote us about the documentary and he remembered it fondly. But anyway, those first focus groups came back and there was this moment of hanging on an edge where I think the very first guy said, I don't know if I like this. I don't get it. And then all the way around the table, everybody else said, this is amazing. I don't want to give it back. I want to keep playing. And that was, oh my gosh, that was a phenomenal feeling in those focus groups. Yeah.
That's great.
And the food we got to eat behind the mirror.
Behind the mirror. Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just real quick, I'm going to get the questions now, but the documentary, people ask, well, haven't these stories been told before? And sometimes the stories can be told, but the big difference is the kind of movie I'm out to, the movies I set out to make. And if you go to philipshane.com, which is, if you're just curious about other movies I've done, it's Philip with one L, you can see some of them. Being Elmo is one that was very popular. I worked on with my friend Constance Marks, and
you guys should all watch that. It's amazing.
Being Elmo is it's a sweet story. Yeah. But the idea is to bring the audience through these moments. We're not reenacting them. It's not actors, although I have actors in mind for both of you, but that's just a fallback.
We'll have to discuss that.
Depends how much we raise on the Kickstarter. So, but to live through these moments, like that focus group moment, just the way you tell it, and then through images that we'll bring, it's amazing to me. That's really what I aim to do. So, here we go. Now, from Sojourn, how do you think about how do you think about the balance of inspiration and perspiration when it comes to creative work? How much is your process grounded in pursuing an artistic vision versus iterating on an idea until it's right? Good question, Sojourn.
Yeah, it's a great question.
I'm sure we'll have different views on this, but it's to me, it's the box again, and I'll expand that because the box also includes a budget, And a lot of your inspiration has to include that budget that you're working within, because you can do good things with a small budget, but you've got to plan that well and know what your limits are and know where the edges of the box are. And I think that's, Robyn and I, in a lot of ways, bootstrapped our whole company just by having larger and larger boxes that, we could do more with, thanks to the tools that we were given, and the edges of the box we push out a little bit because we learned a little bit more, and we got a little more money that we could work with. And so
people have an image also. I want people to understand, maybe younger people understand, that when you say budget, you mean this is money that someone else gives you.
Or even your own money. I mean,
or your own, and it's running out. Yeah.
But you, a lot of things have. You can be very inspired to do grand things, but if you don't have enough resources to finish it, it's a little disappointing. Where sometimes just doing a small thing really well because you understood what the constraints were can be just as satisfying and just as fulfilling. And you can use that, much like Robyn and I did, to kind of then learn from and go to the next thing. Which is cool. I mean, Myst was not an overnight success. We had so many failures on the way up, but we didn't look at them as failures. We looked at them as, we learned something that time. It didn't really make much money, but okay, what can we do now with the money that we did make? And so, I don't know if that answers the exact amount of inspiration versus perspiration. It's always a lot of hard work. No matter what anybody tells you, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
It is a lot of hard work, and I would say the inspiration part of it is always waiting. It's working for an idea. It's searching for an idea, and
searching for an idea is interesting. Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it's searching through all of these other inspirations you have, and researching for an idea. I don't even know exactly how that works. You just collect idea after idea, and somehow you mix them together, and something emerges. But it's a very exciting process. Again, it's an exploration, and I think it's a privilege. But I know the perspiration part of it. It is perspiration. It's a lot of hard work, as Rand said. But it is also an inspiration. And I don't think we should lose sight of that if you get that, if you're lucky enough to be able to work on a project like Myst or Riven or something like that, it is perspiration. But it is a journey as well, doing a production. It's fun. It is fun to get in there and work on something on a day-to-day basis, and explore that world as it comes alive. I to daily journey into it and watch it unfold before you, because you don't know what's around the next corner. I mean, you've designed it, but you don't know exactly how it's going to unfold, and that becomes clear to you as you produce that thing. So that's a very, very awesome privilege. And I doing Myst, doing Riven, that was some of the greatest privileges of my life. I think Rand would feel the same way. Those were amazing.
I'll have to say this came to mind while Robyn was talking, because, and it's true that discovery that you have is just as exciting as playing a game. Robyn said that earlier today. It feels like this world is being invented before you, like you're exploring it. But it's the inspiration. I mean, it's the inspiration that gets you, that doesn't make the perspiration seem so bad. I mean, we worked so much on Myst. I mean, around the clock. I was just working all the time. Robyn was working all the time, Myst and Riven. But it's because we were so excited about it, it doesn't seem, it's not the same kind of work.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's the inspiration that makes the perspiration worth it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, you can perspire doing very pleasant things. So I've heard. We have a question. Yeah, fantastic. That's really great. Here's a question from Dan Floyd. Is there anything Rand and Robyn are looking forward to learning from the documentary? That's an interesting question. Something you're looking forward to learning from the documentary.
I'm scared of learning things from this.
Oh, interesting. Tell me.
I don't know what you're gonna come up with, but
I mean, in some ways, Philip's the one who's made it more interesting because he doesn't have a plan. He's recording these things, and he's got a very loose plan. But it's interesting talking with Philip, and I love the way he comes about this. He says that the story comes out, the story is revealed. In a lot of ways, that's how our games work. You know, you wander around these environments long enough and the story kind of reveals itself while you're in there. So I feel like this is the same, Philip's going at it the same way. And I'm kind of interested to see what comes out. I mean, I'm Philip's a good guy, and the story about how all this happened and the people, not just Robyn and I, but the people who we relied on and the people that went on from us, the input output. I mean, all that story stuff. It's like I'm excited to see both sides of that. Where seeing some of those people it came from and learning some of the stories on the other end that we never knew about, like what it Myst inspired. That will just be so amazing, I'm sure. So that's cool.
I can also I'll address just real quick the idea that there's many kinds of documentaries, and it's always a little bit funny for me to try to describe the way I do documentaries. I think, again, if you've seen any of them before, maybe it gives you some indication, but even there may not be obvious. When people say documentaries, often what they're thinking about is like interviews in particular, or they'll say the questions are going to be answered, or stories are going to be told. And a number of people have said, by the way, oh, I'm not sure, what will I learn new? For instance, there's a lot of YouTube videos, and I encourage you to go on. There are some amazing history of Myst documentaries on YouTube. And by the way, some of them I've been in touch with, some of the people who made them, and others I'm looking forward to getting in touch with you. So, give me a shout. What I go for, though, is, and I came out of a school. I was trained in what's called cinema verite documentary, which is the Maisels brothers, and it was just a style of the early pioneers. One of them was they just go out and they just observe the world. We're not exactly doing that, but I never really enjoyed. I don't want people to, like, the question that will never be asked in this film is, why was Myst successful? It's a great question, and it's worth, having a great time, over a beer or a tea or whatever, and really discussing that. But I don't need to do that, really. My goal is to instead put the audience in the place and bring you guys back to a place of different periods where you were doing certain things that were particularly, interesting, and live through it. And it's because it's the feelings you have living through it that's the meaning. All the other stuff people can talk about later, experts and stuff like that. But the feeling of being creative, and I think, if anything, if we can inspire other creative people to sort of kind of say, yeah, you can get through this. A, it's okay to be doing this, to pursue your life doing this creative thing, and B, you could live a wonderful life if you stick to it. TheMystDocumentary.com. If you want to help our, like I said, the Kickstarter, help us get funded. So now that you were talking about the budget, I feel like it's a good moment to say that's a box we're in. You could help just open the box a little bit. How did the link of this is from Trapeze 77? How did a linking book, or Traps 77? I don't know. How did a linking book materialize on a wooden table in the Stone Ship Age? Yes. Terminator 2-esque.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things we would change.
You should give the real reason for that, though, Robyn. I mean, the real reason.
The real reason. Actually, I mean, I'm not sure I remember the real reason, Rand.
So it does have to do with the tools we were given. It felt like we're living in Candyland sometimes, because we have these amazing tools, and then every now and then the tools will be upgraded, or there'll be a new thing. And I don't see if you remember any of this, Robyn, but I seem to remember that Strata got upgraded. Stratavision got upgraded with like a morph thing where you could put in the morph targets, and you could animate from one thing to another.
So
and there was
Stratavision, just for the uninitiated.
Oh yeah.
Stratavision,
that was the 3D software that Robyn lived
I don't
in
think
for
I actually am not sure that's it. I think I think we used a morphing software from Griffin. I think that was
fake morphing software.
Right. But
Yeah.
I think we
use that on the skull and rose thing.
Oh.
Yeah, right. But I don't know if the Strata thing was, or the book. I mean, you're basically correct. Is that we did it because we could. We did it because it was cool.
Yeah.
And we didn't stop to think, wait, does this really make any sense?
Right.
However, it does bring up a broader issue, which is a lot of things in Myst were just more magical and fantastic. And they didn't have to make sense. It was for us, we were creating a magical universe. We were creating this fantastical place. And it wasn't until we went forward that it began to become more of a science fiction type of universe. We started creating all these explanations for the broader story. It's almost like the character of the whole universe changed. And people began to ask questions in hindsight, like, well, wait, why is the spaceship there? Why is, why is the book morph out of the table? So it's two different tones, to these whole universes. And
so here,
still to this day, some people like tonally that Myst,
the magic,
the magic and the fantastical realm of Myst.
To let you in, everybody in on a secret. It's not a secret.
It's a secret.
We evolved, as we've said many times. We started with Manhole, and all of our projects kind of got, the box got bigger, and we did better stuff. Well, the interesting thing about Myst was, Myst was every one of those was a new world, a new project that got kind of more interesting. But after Myst, we still evolved, but we stayed in the same universe. So Riven, unlike everything we had done up to that point, Riven wasn't a whole new thing. It had to tie into the last thing we did. And so we had learned a lot of new stuff, but we still had these ties to the old stuff. And so we evolved in interesting ways as we were experimenting more, but it had a different feel than what the first one did.
So that leads me right to the next question. I'm just going to bring in this other question because I think it plays in here too. We're talking about Riven. From Yali, what do you think about the legacy of Riven in particular, and how it's considered a cult classic and often touted as the greatest game ever made by fans? Would you ever consider doing another game in that style with a big open world rather than smaller ages within a hub age?
Well, at first, I didn't know it was the greatest game ever made, and that's
it's often touted.
Often,
that's what I mean.
Many people say. Many people say it's the greatest game.
But I think what they're saying is by fans. In other words, that among fans, it's really.
And I'll let Rand answer the rest of the question.
Riven had a large box, and as such, it had more than anything we've ever poured into a game. So it is gratifying that people recognize how much sweat and tears went into it. A lot went into it. As for other games or moving forward, as you guys know, whatever technology moving forward that's available, we try to take advantage of. Our box is shrunk from the days of Riven. We don't have those kind of budgets, so we still have to be creative and scrappy in a lot of ways for the new worlds and with Kickstarters and such. So
Well,
yeah.
I mean, we were, you know, I think I left after Riven. So I think there's a way to get funding for games too. And I don't know if you guys get funding anymore, but I do think there's ways to get funding and do a bigger production. And also get a larger design team and try to achieve something that's more ambitious. So I think it would be very exciting to try and do a project like Riven again. You know, it's not easy to get funded for a project. As hard as that might be to believe.
TheMystDocumentary.com.
And Rand and I are working in different realms. So Rand is making video games these days, and I'm not getting, you know, I'm not. Yeah, so it's a difficult question, you know.
Yeah, but Robyn and I enjoy working together. So who knows what happens?
I think we have a lot
really
of
do go with the flow in a lot of ways. If you know, the funding defines what happens next, and if there's a large amount of funding, we do something. And even the Kickstarter seems like a large amount of money, but those are more like the old Myst kind of budgets. It's not a Riven budget. That was a big one. And if there was funding like that, yeah, that'd be exciting.
Here's a question I love from Sherry Pate. I am sure that more than a few of us have learned patience, perseverance, and humility from the individual puzzles and games as a whole. I can absolutely say that, honestly. Also, there are many in the community who say that the entirety of the Myst universe has changed their lives for the better. It saved mine. And without going too deep, mine too. Did you set out from the very beginning in Myst to challenge the players to recognize the ethical or, quote, virtuous character traits in themselves, as well as the ethical choices they were making as a baked-in story or game mechanic? How much of your spirituality has been written into the Myst universe as a whole? So basically, you know, how much were you thinking about how the player was being affected at a little bit higher level than just playing the game?
I think that was one thing we dreamed of doing in Myst was, I wouldn't say that it was how much of our spirituality was baked into the world as a whole, but we did have this idea that we would somehow create a narrative where the player was the main character, and this was our dream, okay? Because our great ambition was to, and it was even written up in our, like our statement of the game, where the player would have to make an ethical decision.
Yes.
And between these two characters that they would run across. And when we finished Myst, and of course, I'm trying not to give anything away.
Yes.
But when we finished Myst, I don't know what if it achieved that, because it's cool. It's very cool that this person has just asked this question. It feels like it achieved that. I think that's super cool. But that was a goal that we set out to achieve. The other thing we set out to achieve. Go ahead, Rand.
Well, I was going to say it was a goal, but it was along the line of those experiments we were doing. It's like could we make people make a decision based on very limited information,
right,
an ethical choice between these two people with only bits and pieces of things that we scatter about, and they're saying things to you, but you see what they've done, the things that are associated with them. And could you make a choice based on, just general life based on those things? And some of it was balancing those, trying to not make somebody too bad or somebody too good, or make you get in our heads and think, oh, they're trying to make me pick that, but maybe that's not good. Anyway, so
it was,
but it was an experiment.
To explain at the period of the time, now I'm not a scholar of video games yet. By the end of this, I probably will be, but so I don't know exactly what else was around at that time or just before you and whatever. But my experience as a player, and I was playing games that I wasn't, was these are, they weren't animated. These were people, you guys, playing characters, and there's other characters, and the characters are talking to me. And it's the kind of thing in a movie, you see a character, you see the character and the hero of the movie get into a difficult situation. But here we were, and it's one of the it still isn't super common in games, but it's much more common now that ethical. I remember in BioShock, it started to become like, oh, the ethical choice. Well, yeah, in Myst they were doing that too. You have characters basically pleading their case with you,
right?
And it's like that is still top. That's just like an incredible thing. And I think when we see a lot of people focus on images of the spaceship and which are awesome, and the clock tower and things like that, it's a little bit hard to capture the feeling as a player where you are suddenly in this room and someone's saying this, and then you go somewhere else and they tell you something else, and it really feels important. You need to know which one is the right one. Somebody's lying to you. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. What was the most technically difficult aspect of creating Myst with the technology that existed at the time? So we've heard a lot of challenges. What was the most difficult? And I feel like hand in hand with that might be sort of what was the most ambitious thing you really wanted to do and had to like bend and break things to get to happen.
Yeah, go ahead. I know Robyn will have a different take just because of the different departments we were in.
Yeah. Well, for me, the most technically difficult was, and this was hinted at, was everything up until then was hand drawn that we had done, all these kids' games.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the most technically difficult. It's just that we weren't thinking of this. When we first started Myst, I got out my small computer and I began to draw Myst with my mouse, just like I had drawn all our previous games. And, I started to draw the like mountain or hill or whatever it was behind the library. I tried to develop a style for the game. And it was a much more line-based, very graphic style. And I started to think to myself, oh my God, this is crazy. This is not going to work. What have we gotten ourselves into?
You're looking at a gray or a white, off-white
background, and I'm drawing lines, and then I would fill in these areas with, levels of gray.
Only 256 levels of gray, and the lines are super jaggy.
Right, because color didn't exist yet. We had just black and white.
Yeah, in the world.
On Macs. Yeah. Right. So I was getting discouraged really fast. These 3D programs, we used one 3D program. We did a little bit of work with it, and but it was always these small scenes, like desk. I'd done some little, things like a magnifying glass on a desk with a lamp, but never an entire island. Was crazy to do that. I mean, I couldn't accomplish that. That was crazy. I just decided to give it a try, and to go into the way I did it is not, I don't need to do that, but I gave it, I tried it thinking it would never work. And I put some trees on it and made a quick texture for it. And I was kind of blown away that it actually worked. I was like so excited, sent the image to Rand, and it was like, oh my God, okay, we can make all of Myst using this software. And that was like our solution. That was what we, that was like, for me, the biggest technical hurdle in the entire game, knowing that we could do that.
Paint for me the picture of you guys working. How, like, if I had a freeze frame or like a tiny snippet of home movie, a video from let's say that particular moment, just because it was a great story. Rand, like you said, you were in a different room, and what's the dynamic between you and how many other people are around, and who are they? Just so everyone get a quick image of how this played out.
Well, it just started off with the two of us, but we were in different houses, miles away, and there wasn't an internet, so there were phones you could talk on, and we had modems, but they were way too slow for transferring the kind of data that we were transferring. So we started out and very quickly brought in other people as well, but the part that you're asking is basically Robyn would build these models and send me still images. And in a lot of ways, it's very similar to how we had worked on all the previous projects. He would send them to me, and I would link them together and finesse.
So as you get something, what's your reaction?
Well, I got to be the first one. Well, Robyn was the first one to be in the world, but it was a very slow world because it took forever to move the 3D models around. So I got to link the 3D images together and kind of be the first person wandering in these places. And it was amazing. It was just so cool to get those images, like a Christmas when I get a package, and the package would be usually, on a magneto-optical drive or old ways, and it would just be via car, delivered to me. Put it in, download all the pictures, and just immediately start putting the pieces together. And it was like the world would get bigger every time I would get a delivery, which was really exciting.
So Robyn, at what point would you get to see these pieces assembled?
I don't remember. I don't remember when I would get to see them assembled. I remember mostly just getting to see them rendered, because rendering the images took hours back then. And so I would create them in wireframe and, apply all the textures, do all of the work, and then press go, and then just have to wait, or set them going overnight and come back the next morning.
People should understand that. So for instance, these days there's a lot of real time, right?
A lot of real time. Sometimes you have to wait for on certain programs that are, incredibly high resolution, but
right. This is overnight. You would have to set the thing going, and sometimes it would crash.
Yeah. It might, but it worked most of the time. But it was really, in the beginning, mostly, it was totally astounding. It was like seeing into this other world. I really felt like I was the first visitor to the other world. I'm sure Rand felt that too, as he was piecing all of that together. I think we both had this sensation like we were the first visitors to Myst Island. It was a kind of a crazy, awesome sensation.
So the way it rendered, do you remember how it rendered the images, Robyn? Like it would, like Stratavision, the way it rendered, it would do these little blocks. It would start with big blocks, and then it would resolve it smaller, and then it would resolve it smaller. And it took a long time for, if you turned on that feedback, if you saw those blocks appearing, it actually took it longer to render. But so you should turn that off so it would go faster. But sometimes you couldn't resist. It was like you couldn't just leave it on and watch it kind of slowly resolve.
Exactly. Yeah, you had to just kind of get another peek. So you would just kind of press the feedback button, and then you'd see a little bit more into the world. That it really was like seeing into an alternate reality. It was so exciting seeing this other realm it was. I can't stress enough. It doesn't feel that way anymore when you're working on, in a 3D, whatever kind of computer program. It just, we're used to it. But back then, it was so weird feeling. It was so strange to do that, have that sensation.
So I want to bring it. We have just a few minutes left, and let me take an opportunity, if you don't mind. The mystdocumentary.com, and I it's actually want to mention that I'm making this movie. It's me, and and I've had a bunch of incredible people join me, many of whom are right here right now running this crazy operation we got going on Twitch and YouTube. And I don't know, we got almost 7,000 people or maybe more. So that's more people than Radio City Music Hall, by the way, and no Rockettes and no legs at all on screen. But I've like I mentioned, I met you guys in 2016, and we began filming then. It's been just a sporadic process as I've gotten along until I felt like I really knew what we could do, and I know that now, and that's why I felt comfortable starting the Kickstarter now. But I just want to make it clear, I'm making it. It's not obviously it's not a company project or anything like that. That being said, you guys have been unbelievably supportive, and all the people that work with you guys. So I really appreciate that, and I just want everybody to know that, like, sometimes you see organizations, whatever, and the organization has a particular vibe based on the people who started it. Sometimes it's a vibe based on people who started it generations ago or whatever. It's just carried on, And I think I don't know what it is, but it'd be interesting for you guys to touch on this a little bit. There is, when we started the Kickstarter, maybe even like right before, and some of the most devoted people and the kindest people in the Mysterium community would email me and say, "Look, we have this group on Facebook. So suddenly I was an admin of a group on Facebook. I didn't even know about it. We got you. And by the way, shout out to you. Thank you for that. And everybody has it. There's such a wonderful spirit of sharing and kindness. There also happens to be an incredible diversity in the Myst community, and I know that's true of I would say geek culture in general. Is an unbelievable flowering, certainly in gaming, but just want to point out that exists in the Mysterium and just the whole Myst fan community. What is it? I don't like to ask questions like there's a simple answer, but what do you think? I mean, why is it? That came out of Myst, or they came to, in other words, Myst exists and Riven exists, and the spirit in those things, and the others, because Uru is we haven't really touched on that, but obviously for the fan community, that is a huge touchstone. And actually, maybe even Randy, because I think for you, some of the spirit comes from there too. What is it about that? Why is it that these fictional worlds and the experience of playing these things and this kind of spirit of support and creativity and kindness and everybody's, got each other's back comes from?
I'm not gonna, all we can do is postulate, but
yeah.
I mean, just as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, it's got to have something to do with the fact that the worlds we make feel like they're co-op. They're co-op. I mean, there's no, it's not like you're fighting other people. It's like you do this with somebody else. Even Myst, you called your friend, like, how far did you get? Or you saw him in school, and it felt like it's not Doom. There was plenty of other games you could do to satisfy your achievement, in killing aliens and demons or whatever. But this felt like you had a story to tell and you were living it with other people. And maybe that just, that feeling continued, or it affected a group of people at the beginning that just kind of stuck with it and inspired us to just keep making those kind of things. Yeah. I mean, that's, I guess, one thread of possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Robyn?
Yeah. I don't know that we can take any of the credit for that.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. That's, I don't know how that's worked out that way.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's amazing that the fans are, just have this spirit. And it's awesome. So, but, I don't know. I think we're really fortunate that there is this, amazing generosity amongst the fans. toward one another and toward others. So yeah.
Best fans in the world.
Yeah.
And I can say, even going back to the earliest games, like they were solo experiences, or we played them, families played actually, let me touch on even. So the games were, before you even got to the point of being able to be online or even have co-op and all that kind of stuff, right? The first, Myst, Riven, the early games. I just can't get over how many fans come to me, and hardly anybody comes to me and just says, "Oh, I played that game." And or even I played that game with my friends, like with Atari. We always had friends. I mean, you could plug in 4 joysticks into that incredible Atari 2600 or whatever, and that was super fun. But I wouldn't say we were like, we played Knight Rider together. We played Breakout together. It was an amazing, like, this was an experience people lived. Mm-hmm. People went on a journey and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was just also just the vibe, the pace. It wasn't a clock. It was like a place for people to go and experience together, and it left a lot of freedom to the fans. So lastly, I would just ask you guys if there's something you'd like to say about the Kickstarter experience at all. How has that been for you? Particularly, well, one thing I hope is that you guys are I don't know, and I feel like I need to share a lot more. Like, you need to see what people are saying, but how has it been?
No, I was going to say Kickstarter's been good to us. I mean, we've done amazing Kickstarter things, and that the idea of having it funded by your fans is, how can that be bad? It's like the most satisfying thing ever. You have a few more bosses, but they're really nice bosses. Yeah. So it works out really well. I'm going to put in. I have to put in a word for Philip too. This is not our documentary. Robyn and I don't know where this story will go. It's going to have a life of its own. It's going to revolve around some things Myst and the things that all of us, fans and us, both love, but it's going to be a new story. And that's, I think, exciting. And I can't think of, when we met Philip, it was clear that very quickly that, if somebody's going to tell that new story, you don't want them to be some jerk. And it didn't seem right off the bat that Philip was much of a jerk. He seemed like the kind of guy that you want to tell the story, and tell the truth behind it, whatever that is, and pull something inspirational out of it. And that's what he does. I love it. I don't even know what it's going to be, but I love the fact that Philip's behind it, and whatever he pulls out, I'm going to be inspired by. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would just, add almost the same thing, which is that he's a great guy to hang out with, and he puts us at ease. I think I don't know how documentaries are made, but it's when he's around, I think we kind of don't know he's around, so we act ourselves. That might be dangerous.
Yeah.
But he's really a wonderful person, and it's been a great, the amount of time he's been around has been really wonderful. And so,
thank you guys. Thank you guys. I think that one of the coolest things about this is you guys are innovators. You guys are artists. And many times I've come to you guys and said, well, how can we do this? What is it? And you guys have had, you come up with some amazing idea how to do something, and so telling a story, there are not a lot of documentaries about video games. And I think one of the reasons is it's a little bit hard to tell for a number of reasons. And I love nothing more. I've been very fortunate to make a lot of films, to work on a lot of films, be a part of a lot of documentaries. And this is such a huge challenge, but also an opportunity to really experiment. Like I was talking about that, like, maybe we go in the game, maybe we could use that as a way to explore. Maybe we can go visit people who created the thing that you did, rather than just talk about, that we use this thing called HyperCard. Let's go meet somebody who did that, Yeah. And that if there are people, like I'm coming to you guys saying, I can't, you guys and everyone here listening tonight is like, you guys totally changed my life, and if there are people like that for you, for us to be able to see you guys do that, is really cool. So there's all these different, you'll hear little tidbits about different aspects of the movie, and these are all ideas kind of in creation. Learn a lot more about it at the mystdocumentary.com, and just click. At the moment, when you go there, if you haven't yet, you will be presented with a pretty magical scene. It was created by Alana Bogdan, who's one of the most devoted fans out there. She made when I met her at recent Mysterium, she'd made a dress that had a map of the entire worlds on it, and she's incredible. She made this. You see a beautiful scene there, and you click right, and you go to Kickstarter. And on Kickstarter, you can watch a trailer for the movie, and you can read a whole bunch about it. And there's all kinds of rewards, some of which there's cool shirts. You can have this one. We should, Katie, can we create a special level? It's just this. No, I need it. But shirts, pens, all that kind of stuff, merch, the usual kind of stuff. Really cool mementos that will be very special, because there's there's going to be a special, there's going to be a rare thing. But also really cool stuff for collectors, kind of as you work your way up the tiers. Of course, different ways of getting the movie at different levels. You'll be able to download the movie. At other levels, you get a Blu-ray and DVD. There's a souvenir book we're going to include, because we're going to have so many interviews and so much extra material. We're going to do that. There's a level for backers where we're collecting, and I just can't wait for you guys to see this. We're collecting the stories, what we call My Myst story, right? People's experiences of coming into Myst. And there's a certain level of backer where we want to honor you, because it is a higher level. We want to really honor you by, one of our filmmakers will talk to you, we'll record it, and, ask you we'll really get your story down in a beautiful way. And those will be crafted, and we'll put together those in some sort of living archive, that people can visit. And on Twitter, if you got fun stories, you can tweet #MyMystStuff if you own cool stuff, although the journal you've got, the box, this, whatever, fan art, tweet it, pictures, #MyMystStuff. And if you want to talk about, this is really my preference, if you want to talk about your feelings, how did Myst, as in the entire world of Myst, make you feel at times, #MyMystFeels. Let us know. And once again, the mystdocumentary.com. Help us with the Kickstarter. And above all, none of us would be here, gentlemen, without you guys just doing what you did, and having the spirit you have. So huge heartfelt thanks to you guys. And I know from all of the nearly 7,000 people listening, and the millions around the world. So
thanks, Philip.
All right.
Thank you. And thank you guys.
Thanks.
Fans.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
Everyone
Mysterium,
Yes, go ahead. Enjoy Mysterium. Runs all weekend. Keep on watching. And be in touch with all of us. Let us know what you think. We all want to know.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great weekend at Mysterium, guys.